Welcome back to Pack to Rock Podcast, Episode 7. I'm your host, Carlo Barone, joined by Evan Gerike and Tommy Spaletto. And Tommy's a new face on the podcast.
I am, yes.
He is one of the IU football column writers, I assume.
Yes, column writer.
Would you just like to introduce yourself to the podcast?
Yes, so my name is Tommy Spaletto. I am a junior here at IU. I'm studying sports media, and like Carlos said, I'm one of the column writers for the football team, so happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on. We're glad to have you. I've worked with you with women's basketball and women's soccer, and now football. So we've kind of been through this sports media journey together. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast today. Evan, glad to see you again, as always.
I'm back as normal. Can't get rid of me. We got rid of Max this week. So
he's a little under the weather, so we'll miss you, Max, but I'm sure we'll see him next week.
Yeah.
So talking about the game, IU lost to Maryland 38-33 in a game that I think they had definitely had multiple chances to win and put away in the fourth. But then again, Indiana falls to 3-4, 4 straight losses after starting this season 3-0. So first question about Maryland, guys, just what were you guys' overall takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing to me was that this is a game that Indiana had multiple chances to win, and they didn't take any of them. The theme of this week really felt like self-inflicted wounds. They had the big turnovers that we'll talk about later, especially that last fumble. They had a few chances where they could have come up with big defensive stops on third down or late in the game to kind of, there was one time I think they had the lead and they could have made a stop and they didn't. Another time where they were only down 3 and they could have made a stop and they didn't. All those chances were just on a silver platter for them where they could have easily, taken a victory in a game that, they should have been able to win. I think it would have been a really good morale booster for the rest of the season. And they just kind of fumbled away all the chances and quite literally fumbled it away. Yeah. And that it hurts. It hurts for the Hoosiers. But they have to bounce back this week. You just have to take the positives away from the Maryland game and learn how to build off those going forward with reducing all the negatives.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that, especially on the defensive side, they let up 38 points, is Cam Jones. He's the leader. He's the captain of that defense. Obviously did not suit up for that game. Was one of the leaders in the Big Ten in total tackles, and boy, did they not tackle well. That was pretty frustrating to watch. So I think, having him out on the field would have certainly made a difference in this game.
And the first time we recorded this podcast this is the second time because I forgot to hit the record button.
Episode 7, part 2.
We were halfway through, and now we're hitting the record button. So I'm glad that we're actually recording this. But I like how you mentioned the last one, or someone mentioned the tackling. I tweeted out during the game that this is easily IU's worst tackling performance of the year. I don't know if the numbers exactly back that up, but just watching the game with my own eyes, it was hard at points because they could not get Talia down. He kept. I don't know if they even got it. They might have gotten 1 or 2 sacks on him, but he got away. Maryland's offensive line didn't play particularly well. He had to scramble for a lot of their plays, but he did a fantastic job at that. I remember there was one play he was rolling to the right. He dodged 1 or 2 IU defenders and just threw an absolute dot down the left sideline, and it was a first down and on 3rd and long for Maryland, and it kept the drive going. And that was just one of those plays that I watched, and I was like, wow, this kid, he's definitely special. And I think, obviously, with the last name Tagovailoa, you're not in a bad company there of quarterbacks. But I think before he got out, he played well. And even when the backup came in, he didn't even look that bad. But he was a Wake Forest transfer, so he's had experience as well. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, the Hoosiers they did not have a very good tackling day. And I think they did well in other areas that they usually struggle in for some of the year. We mentioned in the first time recording the podcast, their O-line hadn't played terribly bad. They only allowed 2 sacks. Anything's better than 7 against Michigan, so 2 sacks isn't too bad. But the things that hurt them were the turnovers that we're going to get into in a sec and penalties and other stuff like that. But, I guess we'll just dive right.
Well, defensively as well, I do want to add, they did sack Tagovailoa 5 times. There were a lot of times they got him down the backfield, but a lot of times as well where he made them miss tackles. Aaron Casey had 4 missed tackles, and while he was Indiana's highest rated defender, kind of stepping up in Cam Jones' place, you can't afford to have 4 missed tackles when you have 9 total tackles. Like that's a lot. That's a 30% miss rate. And even if Aaron Casey has been playing well and kind of their whole linebacker core has been doing pretty well in Cam Jones' stead when he's out. But when you're missing that many tackles, you miss 16 tackles as a team, you probably, I don't know what the stat was for like yards after contact or yards after attempt. It looks like you're 136 yards after contact. And, that gives a lot of opportunities for a team like Maryland, whose offense is so good that you can't afford to give them second chances.
Yeah, I think the game was about second chances that Maryland got and Indiana did not take advantage of. So speaking of things that just kind of gave the game away, we talk about the turnovers. First play of each half, Bazelak threw interceptions, and in the final 5 minutes on the Hoosiers' eventual last drive to go win the game, they fumbled away quite literally their last chance to win. Like I mentioned, they actually played a decent game outside of the turnovers, but the turnovers eventually was the Achilles heel of the game. And I kind of feel like a theme with this Indiana team is kind of just shooting themselves in the foot, making unforced errors. So obviously the offense has been a big talk of the season as they've been up and down here and there. So with a 3-turnover game, how do the Hoosiers clean up their offense going forward against Rutgers, who I believe is definitely going to be a game they have a chance to win, but just how can the Hoosiers clean up their offense as a whole?
Well, I think it's all really about first establishing a competent run game. Looking at the stats right now, Sean Shivers, 14 carries, 32 yards. It's just really been a reoccurring theme where Indiana can't really get the running game going. Offensive line really didn't make some of the correct blocks that they needed to. And then that forced Indiana into a lot of passing situations, a lot of third and longs, where Bazelak had to use his arm and, obviously threw a couple picks. So I think, that's going to be really the key into, getting this offense, I don't want to say back on track, but like
on a better track.
On a better track, yeah.
No, I think you're completely right. I mean, Bazelak really had one of his best performances of the year this week, 29 for 42, a 69% completion rate, which is his best by I think about 15%, 292 yards and 3 touchdowns. The 2 interceptions obviously hurt a lot. If he doesn't make those poor decisions to throw those balls, or even completes one of them, he's honestly has a really good day out there. And the interceptions I think may have been the difference between Indiana winning and losing this game. But yeah, the run game just is not doing anything. When you're averaging 1.1 yards per rush, although I guess it has to do with a lot of the sacks that Indiana gave up and the negative rush plays. But Sean Shivers on 14 attempts only had 32 yards. And it just feels like this team can't get anything going there, which, you have to do something. You have to change it up somehow. And I don't really know, if something Rod Carey can do this week to address the run game with the offensive line will make it better, or if Indiana just has to really rely on its air game a lot more. But, they do so many like draw plays and play action, and it's like that doesn't work when you don't have a run game. I think twice they did a draw play on like 3rd and long, and they both went for negative yards. It was like, I don't understand what this team is doing on this play. But, Connor Bazelak has to make better decisions and throw the ball better, but you also have to have a run game that he can rely on occasionally.
Yeah, I think obviously they've struggled in the run game all year, and they've struggled in the offensive line all year, and I think those two go hand in hand. But Walt Bell, he's got to call a better game at some point. He's called some good games, but a draw on 3rd and like 10, or even like 3rd and 7, if it's over 5 yards on 3rd down, you should not be running the ball.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's called
that wasn't the best.
a lot of really good drives. You'll see these drives where they go, there's a 17-play, 57-yard drive. They pull out some trick plays. They scored on a lot of longer drives that we haven't seen from them so far this season. And then you've got other drives where it's like you said, it's 3rd and 10, and you're running a draw play that fools nobody
in your own territory.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you doing? But yeah, I think he's called some good plays and some bad. I think Indiana, I don't see a reason why they should run a draw pretty much the rest of the year. Obviously, an exaggeration, but play calling, offensive line, running game is just, I feel like it's out of sorts. And when you're relying on the pass game and Baselak turns it over 2 times, I mean, it's hard to win like that. They did put up 33 points, which was their most in a while. I don't remember the last time they got over
Idaho?
30. Yeah, has it been that long?
Or Western Kentucky. I know they
Oh,
might have been Western Kentucky.
probably was Western because wasn't that 33-30?
Yep, 30
Yes.
through 30.
So the last time they got that was Western Kentucky a couple weeks ago. So this is the first time they went over.
They also only scored 35 against Idaho.
Whoa.
I
Yeah.
don't know that.
We talked about that game already. We
So-
don't have to go
yeah.
back there.
33 against Maryland's a pretty good performance, especially when you turn over the ball 3 times. But they also got a lot of possessions. One thing I did note is they only had 2 3-and-outs. Against Nebraska, they had 7 of their 15 drives to be 3-and-outs.
That is true, but also you have to remember they had 3 turnovers. 2 of them went 1 play.
Yeah.
1 of them went 2 plays, and they also had a drive that went 4 plays. So their scoring drives were really good drives. 11 play, 55 yards, 4-minute time of possession, which is Indiana has not had all season for a field goal. 11 play, 80 yards for a touchdown. 17 plays, 57 yards for a field goal. That is not what we've been seeing out of this team all year. We've been seeing a lot more short, quick drives. But and it is good that they only had 2 3-and-outs, especially if you negate the turnovers. That's a pretty good offensive performance. But those turnovers turned into 17 points for Maryland. Indiana had 0 points out of turnovers. The game was a 5-point difference. You can do the math.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like this team keeps just finding different ways to shoot themselves in the foot. So now with their 4th straight loss, I know their bowl chances are slim just based on how good the Big Ten East is. But what do you guys see this game and this result mean for this team's bowl chances?
I certainly think that looking at the schedule, this is one that they needed to win, and next week will be that even more, considering that they have, their bye week, and then they have Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Purdue all consecutively. So that's going to be a gauntlet. Looking how Michigan State's looking this year, which is not great, maybe they can steal one in East Lansing. Maybe. But, Rutgers, they have to win in order for bowl eligibility. So just made it that much tougher.
Rutgers might be the only game they win again this season. And that's assuming they can beat Rutgers. Maryland was definitely one of the games on the schedule where you circle at the beginning of the season. We're like, okay, here's a win that we need if we want to make a bowl game. But they've already lost 2 of those games in Nebraska and Maryland. And maybe Illinois wasn't one that we circled, so maybe you negate one of those.
Yeah, those could go back and forth.
But, if they want to make a bowl game, they have to beat Rutgers in Piscataway. They have to beat Michigan State in East Lansing. And they have to beat Purdue. And I don't know if they can do that. This isn't a team that has shown any indication that they can do that. And it's shown way less indication that they can knock off Ohio State or Penn State. So I'm just going to count those as losses already.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to make a bowl game, they really had to beat Maryland in order to win. Now they only would have to win 2 of those 3 games, and maybe that's a little bit more possible. But it's looking like it's not going to be very likely.
You mentioned the games that we circled at the beginning of the year: Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska. If they wanted to make it, they would have had to win those games. But now that they have Purdue, Ohio State, you mentioned the back end of their schedule. It's hard.
Life in the Big Ten East,
the gauntlet.
It is. It's crazy how good the Big Ten East is versus the Big Ten West.
Yeah.
Now that Illinois win that IU got week 1. Every single week, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, look how that looks.
Every week, I'm questioning how they got that win. But I think you mentioned that they have to play East Lansing on the road. They've got to play Ohio State on the road. They've been a lot better at home, but on the road this year, they have looked a ton worse.
Oh, yeah.
So getting those upsets is going to be that much harder just because they don't have as much fight on the road as they do at home.
Yeah.
So enough about Maryland. Moving on to Rutgers this weekend. It's definitely an interesting game, to say the least. They do go to Rutgers, though, on the road, and they lost to Rutgers. If you guys remember last year, listen to this, 38-3 at home. I was there, and wow, I went home not very happy when I used to be an IU football fan before I covered them. But, yeah, 38-3.
I wasn't there for that.
Yikes. Yeah, you didn't need to be there for that. Trust me, you didn't miss much. So, guys, they're two different teams. I would say Indiana's definitely a lot better than they were last year. I don't know exactly how good Rutgers is compared to last year, but based on the research I've done, I think this is definitely a winnable game for the Hoosiers, but they're going to have to come out and fight. So what does Indiana need to do to win this game and get back to 500 at 4-4?
I think it's just you got to play a great 4 quarters. I think if you limit your mistakes, we've seen Rutgers at times. I mean, especially in their last game against Nebraska, it was really a tale of 2 different halves. They looked really good. They were throwing the ball down the field, making great plays. Got a couple turnovers in that first half, and then they just really collapsed in that second half. So I think if Indiana can just stay consistent, play good football, limit mistakes all 4 quarters, I mean, they're more than capable of beating this team.
Yeah, I think the main thing for me is just having a good performance out of your secondary. Rutgers is not a great passing team. They're a much better running team. They're pretty good on the ground, but Indiana's defense on the flip side has been good at stopping teams that run well, especially Michigan. We saw them really, bear down on Michigan's run game. If Indiana can stop the run game like normal, and as long as you don't give up a lot of big passing plays, the offense showed you last week that it has enough in the tank to beat a team like Rutgers, who is not an offensive powerhouse. They've only scored 20 twice this season. One of those was Wagner, where they scored 66 points. The other was a 22-21 win over Boston College. If Indiana scores 3 touchdowns, it might be enough. Yeah. But you have to have your defense not give up big plays, and that's really the key.
Yeah, when I was doing my research and I saw that Rutgers has not scored over 20 points since week 2 in both their games, week 1 and 2, they got over 20 and they haven't since. It blew my mind because I didn't realize that an offense could be, I don't want to say that bad, but like the Hoosiers have the better offense here. And
which is shocking to say. I didn't think we could say that in the game this season.
That might be the first time all season. Maybe, honestly, I don't even know about Idaho. Going into the game, I would have said yes, but after, I don't know. This is the first time that they're going in and, they are clearly the better offensive team, which is crazy to think about because that really hasn't happened this season. So, on that note, I feel like this has to be a must-win. If they want to think about a bowl game, this would give them their 4th win. So then they would have to just get an upset against Michigan State, which would be hard. But they're going to have to win one of those games against Purdue, Ohio State, Penn State, which I think Purdue of any of them has to be the most likely. Mm-hmm. So if they want to make a bowl game, do you guys see this as a must-win?
Forget it if they want to make a bowl game. In general, this is a must-win. I mean, like we said, this might be the only winnable game left on the schedule based on the way they play on the road, and even then, it's a little bit iffy on if this one's winnable for this team. Unless you want to finish the season 3-9, you have to win this game. You absolutely have to win the game. I don't know I still don't think Tom Allen's quite yet on the hot seat, but it's definitely one where in a few weeks or months, and maybe we're saying he is on the hot seat, we're going to be looking back at this game to determine whether or not he handled Rutgers. This is something that you need to do your job as a head coach and as a football team and handle the games on your schedule that are winnable. And Nebraska's got a really good atmosphere, and yes, is one they should have won, but I can kind of see how it's harder to win in Nebraska. Don't think Rutgers quite has the same atmosphere as Nebraska. I mean, I don't know if we've had a game this season that has been as much of a must-win as this one is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, especially considering that IU's bye week is next week. They need this win to just go into the bye week with at least some momentum going in against the gauntlet there. And, Rutgers, as we mentioned, their offense is just really struggling. We could see, 3 quarterbacks that they've played throughout the entire year, and we're only halfway through the season. So They're in quite the fit offensively, and I think Tom Allen and that defense just really needs to care business this game in Piscataway.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see who is the starting quarterback. Noah Vedral is kind of the guy we've seen play a couple times, but Evan Simon seems to be the guy who's gotten the most attempts, most time on the field, and they're not naming a starting quarterback going into this week. Yep. They're coming out of a bye week, so that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see who they decide to go with.
Not naming a starting quarterback right before a game, that sounds little
Who would do that?
A little too familiar there.
Well, if you remember what happened when Indiana didn't name a starter, they came out and beat Illinois, who was 5-1.
Is now ranked 18th.
And Illinois was also coming out of a week where they played a game and Indiana wasn't. So a lot of similarities here. I'm a little bit concerned for IU this week.
Let's just hope we don't get a game-winning drive on us in the fourth quarter.
Oh, that'd be
tough.
So predictions time for Rutgers. I stand alone at the top. I'll chill out. I stand
only
alone.
one person here is undefeated in their predictions.
Yeah.
So. That's true.
Undefeated, never lost.
Evan, you're 5-2. Our good friend Max is 5-2. I'm 6-1. Tommy, it's your first time going, so I'm gonna let you take the floor.
I've been going back and forth on this, but I think the Hoosiers get the job done in Piscataway with a final score of 31-24.
Evan, would you like to go, or would you want me to go?
I'm going to go ahead and go now, and I'm going to say Rutgers is going to win, so that I'll leave you as the deciding vote here. Indiana has not played very well on the road. They, every week in games where it feels like they should come out and be able to win, going back to Idaho, they've struggled to do that. I'm not feeling confident enough to say that Indiana will win just because of the way the season has gone. So I'm going to say 23-21 Rutgers.
All right, I will be the deciding vote. I'm going to say the Indiana football Hoosiers are going to go into Piscataway, New Jersey this weekend, and they will win 27-24 against Rutgers. I think Rutgers gets over 20 points for just the third time this year, but I do think Indiana is going to walk it off with a field goal for the win at the buzzer from Charles Campbell, and then we'll say it'll be a 43-yarder, and it'll be from the right hash. He'll nail it through. He'll run away. It'll be second game-winning kick of the year, and they will walk out of Rutgers with a win.
That would be big for this team going to the bye week. That'll be an important kick if that were to happen.
Take notes for those listening at home.
Yeah, with all jokes aside, I do think the Hoosiers win. I think it's going to be close, but I think they just have the better offense and more firepower on their offense, especially if Camper and DJ Matthews plays, which I don't believe they're hurt at all.
They should both be good.
Yeah.
So, the Hoosiers should also be getting Jalen Williams back, I believe, this week.
That's correct.
Tom Allen said I don't know if they're expecting him back, but he believes he will be.
Yes.
There's at least a good chance he will be. So that'll be a big return for the Hoosiers.
If I will add one more thing, I would say one player to watch this game, Emery Simmons. He's had 6 catches in the past 3 games. I think in a game like this, Walt Bell and that offense really needs to, look for him more.
99 yards this week.
Yeah, I would watch out for him.
So we'll just have to see how Indiana does. I don't think any of us are traveling to Rutgers, unfortunately. If I had an extra $1,000 in my pocket to throw around for the Indiana football Hoosier Net
Any of you want to donate?
Yeah, if we had that, maybe we'd be there, but unfortunately we won't be. I will be at the University of Illinois visiting my friend, but I will be live tweeting the game. Our good friend Max, I believe, is he calling the game?
I believe he is, yes.
Yes, he's calling it. And Evan, you're having the best weekend of any of us. You're going to a wine tasting, so
I will be. It will be my mother's birthday. We're going to celebrate my birthday as well. So we will be in Michigan wine tasting, and Tommy will be riding for me.
I will. Yes, I will be in Bloomington.
That sounds awesome, man. Evan,
I'm excited.
I hope you have a great time. Happy belated birthday. I know
you
wished you it last week, but it's good you're celebrating now. So we'll just have to see how the Hoosiers do. They play Rutgers. Does anyone know the time of the game?
Noon.
Is that? Yeah. Oh, it's noon? Okay. So Indiana will play Rutgers at noon, looking to get back to 500. I've been your host, Carlo Barone, joined by Evan Gerike and Tommy Spaletto of the Hoosier Network. And we'll see you guys next week.